Part 6, Documenting Patient and Family Education. This video will be on how to document patient-family education in Meditech. The materials you use to teach with will be provided by the bedside nurse or in the system, and your instructor will show you how to access those. However, the actual documentation of education is done off the interventions list as well, and if you note, we have a considerable number of education things to be taught. So one of the things that when we built this that we did was to always bundle every education topic with a patient-family learner assessment. Because anytime you teach, you need to assess the learner that you're teaching. So if we were just to open up hand hygiene, we'll just do it for right now. You will see it's bundled with a patient-family learner assessment. And we're going to actually teach family a couple of things right now. We're going to teach secondhand smoke, hand hygiene, the daily ongoing education. We now have chosen 3 topics, so when we checkmark them and click document, we're going to see a patient-family learner assessment bundled with each topic. You're teaching all 3 topics at the same time, or you're teaching one topic, you just do one learner assessment. So even though we have 3 here, we're just going to document on one of them. Let's do the learner assessment first. So we're just going to pick the one that's at the top of the list. And this is done by learner. So we're teaching mom and dad right now. So let's start with mom. And mom has a limited knowledge of what we're going to teach. The baby's not been in the hospital before, and they've only got limited information from their doctor on asthma. Phil's mom speaks Spanish, and she reads and she writes in the language as well. As we're working with her, she's listening, but she's a little distracted. She's been up with Phil for 3 days sick, and so she's tired. So when you identify your barriers to learning, you're going to identify, well, first of all, language, and probably some fatigue. Before we talk about accommodations, let's talk about her preferences. Mom really likes written handouts and demonstrations. So we're going to try and provide her some written handouts in Spanish and use demonstrations whenever we can. So the accommodations are going to be, first of all, an interpreter, handouts in Spanish, and an interpreter to demonstrate. And we're probably going to have to do some explanation, but that's not really accommodation for her barriers. And after we teach mom, she verbalizes understanding of the 3 topics. She performs hand hygiene appropriately. She even reminds the resident to wash his hands. So we will say she's performing successfully those 3 topics. Now, once we go back up to the learning assessment, we need to do dad, and so we want to add an occurrence to the learner assessment occurrence number 1 we just did for mom. So as long as we're in any of the queries under the assessment, we can assert a second occurrence so that we can do dad. Dad also has limited knowledge for the same reasons as mom. He also speaks English and Spanish, but he prefers to learn in English, and he reads and writes in English. He is listening and asking questions. He got a little more sleep than mom, but he's also a little distracted, and it's probably the emotional of having his child in the hospital for the first time. So we're going to click emotional being a barrier. When we ask dad, he likes written handouts and verbal explanations. So we are going to provide handouts and explanations for dad. We might even make a note that we're going to not teach on both mom and dad, teach them a whole lot at one time. Dad shows verbalized understanding. He could perform successfully. Oh, and let's go back under mom. We probably should have checkmark teach back because she reminded the doctor. Then we have a free text box if you need to chart anything else. So that's our assessment. For 1 topic, 2, 3, we just do it once. So now we're going to go to our go-to list by clicking go to, and we're going to do the daily ongoing education. This time what we covered was a little bit on asthma. We talked about the med. We covered fall prevention again because he's starting to feel better. And we covered hand hygiene, his activity as he's feeling better, maybe a little discharge planning, maybe a little visitor guidelines. And we covered it with both parents because they are definitely involved. They've been involved in the care planning, the feeding, the walking, the bathing, the changing diapers, and providing meals. So now we're going to go to, we don't need to do the next assessment. We're going to go to hand hygiene. So we taught on hand hygiene. Yes, that's it, unless you want to make a comment. We're going to go to skip the learner assessment and teach on secondhand smoke. And we might even make a comment about Grandma Gloria smokes, and so they don't visit her with the child, and she's not allowed to smoke at their house. Okay, so let's go to, we are done. We've done one assessment that covered all 3 topics, so we're going to say done, and there's your trigger to be co-signed. All right, now you're back after saving the education that you did, and you can see now we have a history in 3 of the education items.